I never thought I'd be the one who walks away, not from family, not from blood. But here I am, sitting alone in my apartment, the silence almost deafening, and for once, I'm okay with it. My brother, Jake, was always the golden child. Charismatic, charming, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Me. I was the quiet one, the reliable one, the guy who showed up when no one else did, who covered bills when they ran out of money, who carried the weight of everyone else's mess while they laughed and lived their best lives. I don't even remember when it started exactly. Maybe when I moved back home after college, trying to get on my feet, or when Jake got married and his wife needed help with their mortgage. At first, it was small things, a couple hundred here, a few hundred there, nothing that broke my bank account. But the requests never stopped. Christmas presents for their kids, school trips, car repairs, medical bills. I was the guy who always had an open wallet, and no one ever said thank you. I never complained. I thought it was what brothers do. I thought family had your back no matter what. But after a while, I started to notice things, like how my own needs and dreams got pushed to the side. Like how my calls home mostly came with a laundry list of problems, and how can you help became the default greeting. The breaking point wasn't sudden. It was a moment, small and almost ridiculous in hindsight. One Saturday afternoon, scrolling through social media, I saw a picture that shattered everything. There was Jake, his wife, and their two kids, all smiles, all perfect, all posing on the deck of a luxury yacht. The caption read, "Making memories that last a lifetime. #blessed. Yacht, luxury, vacation. Meanwhile, I was drowning in bills, still trying to save enough to finally get out of my cramped apartment." And here they were, flaunting a life I was bankrolling, a life they never once invited me to share. I didn't say a word to anyone. I just closed the app, my stomach knotting into something raw and angry. That night, Jake called. I debated not answering, but I did. "Hey man, how's everything going? Listen, we're a little tight this month with the house, and the kids' new school fees think you could spot us a bit, just until payday." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him exactly what I'd seen, but instead I hung up. The silence after that was deafening. For the first time, I didn't pick up when they called. I didn't reply to texts. I stopped being the fallback, the safety net, the guy they could always count on. And honestly, it felt incredible. The silence after that final call was deafening. I thought maybe, just maybe, things would stay quiet, that I could finally breathe without feeling like a walking ATM or a punchline. For a few weeks, it was exactly that. No calls, no texts, no guilt trips. Just peace. But peace doesn't come free when you're tied to a family like mine. It started with a message from my sister's husband, Mark. I wasn't expecting it, and my first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. He wasn't the kind to reach out, especially after everything that had happened. "Mark, hey Daniel, it's Mark. Look, I know things have been rough, but Sarah's really struggling. The house, the bills, it's all piling up, and honestly, we're at a breaking point. I hate to say this, but maybe you could help us out again." Just a little, my heart sank. This wasn't a request from Sarah, it was Mark, the one who'd never known the whole story but was now living the fallout. I sat there, staring at my phone, hands shaking. The man who I thought would never ask for anything was now begging for help because the perfect life we all pretended to have was crumbling. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I remembered a conversation Sarah and I had years ago, the one where she told me, "You don't have real responsibilities. You don't understand. Funny how now she was the one drowning." I typed back simply, "Me, I'm sorry, Mark." I can't. I stared at the message for a long time before hitting send, and then nothing, no reply, no follow-up, just silence again, but the guilt that never went away. I called my closest friend, Jake, who knew the whole situation better than anyone else. "Man, I don't know what to do. I'm not a monster for saying no, right?" I asked him, voice cracking. Jake sighed on the other end of the line. "No, Danny, you're not. You've been their safety net for years. Sometimes you gotta let the system collapse to rebuild it better or walk away entirely." Easy to say when you're not the one who gets called a selfish prick by your own sister. I snapped, frustration boiling over. Jake laughed a little bitterly. "That's family for you. But remember who you are, Danny. Not what they say or want from you." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But deep down, a storm was brewing. A few days later, I got a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, there she was, Sarah, standing there with rimmed eyes and that same hurt expression I'd seen so many times before, but this time it was different. It wasn't anger or entitlement. It was desperation. "Can we talk?" she said softly, voice trembling. I hesitated but stepped aside. Sure. She walked in, avoiding eye contact. I closed the door behind her, feeling the tension hanging heavy between us. "I'm sorry, Danny. I didn't mean for it to come to this. We all messed up," she started, her voice breaking. I crossed my arms, waiting. "I know I was selfish, and so were Mom and Dad. We didn't appreciate you. We took you for granted." She swallowed hard. "I'm scared, Danny. We're falling apart without you." I looked at her, the sister I once thought I knew, slipping away beneath the weight of years of lies and neglect. "Why should I believe you now?" I asked quietly. She wiped a tear away. "Because I'm tired of pretending. I need my brother back. Not the wallet, not the backup plan, just you." It hit me harder than I expected, but years of pain, disappointment, and betrayal don't vanish overnight. "I don't know if I can," I admitted. She nodded, understanding. "Then don't. But don't shut me out either," she whispered. We sat in silence after that, the past and present colliding in a moment I never thought would come. I knew this was only the beginning, the start of something I couldn't yet define. But for the first time in a long time, there was a sliver of hope. A chance to rebuild or finally walk away for good. The days after Sarah's visit were some of the hardest I'd ever faced. It was like a heavy fog had settled over everything, my mind, my heart, my very sense of who I was. I kept replaying her words in my head. "I'm tired of pretending. I need my brother back. But could I really go back? Could I trust again after all the years of broken promises, of being used, misunderstood, and hurt?" I decided to take a walk to clear my head. The city was buzzing around me, but inside I felt numb. As I wandered through the park, I thought about everything that had brought us here. The constant calls for money, the guilt trips, the family obligation, that felt more like a chain than a bond. I realized something crucial. I had spent so much time trying to fix what was broken outside me that I had neglected what was broken inside me. I needed to set boundaries not just with Sarah or my parents, but with myself. When I got home, I pulled out my journal, something I hadn't touched in years. I wrote, "I am not responsible for their happiness. I am not the ATM. I am not the fixer of their lives." The words felt heavy but liberating. Over the next weeks, I began to take small steps. I answered Sarah's calls, but on my terms. I told Mark no when the money requests started again. I started saying no to my parents when they guilted me. It wasn't easy. One evening, Sarah called me in tears. "Danny, I don't know what to do." "We're drowning?" I took a deep breath. "Sarah, I want to help, but not like this. You need to get help, real help, not just from me. You need a plan, not just a paycheck." She was silent for a moment, then whispered, "I'm scared." "Me too," I said honestly, "but running away from it isn't helping either of us." Slowly, we began to talk not about money, but about real life, about plans, about dreams, about how we could rebuild. What was lost one step at a time. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a broken record or a punching bag. I felt like a brother again, but I knew the road ahead would be long and rocky, because family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, trust, and love, the kind that required work, forgiveness, and sometimes hard truths, and I was ready to fight for that. After that difficult conversation with Sarah, a subtle shift began between us. The frantic calls for money became less frequent. Instead, she started opening up about what was really going on, her struggles with addiction, the weight of shame she carried, and the hope she still clung to for a better future. It wasn't easy to hear. It wasn't easy to watch her wrestle with demons I barely understood. But for the first time, I felt like I wasn't just a financial lifeline. I was someone who mattered to her in a deeper way. One afternoon, Sarah called me. "Danny, I've been going to a support group," she said hesitantly. "It's hard, but it's helping." I felt a swell of hope. "That's incredible, Sarah. I'm proud of you." She laughed softly. "Don't get too proud yet. It's just one step." I knew that all too well. Over the next few months, I made a conscious effort to rebuild our relationship on new terms, grounded in honesty, respect, and mutual support rather than guilt and obligation. I also started working on my own healing. I sought therapy to unpack Years of resentment and pain, and learned how to set healthy boundaries without feeling selfish. One breakthrough came during a session when I realized that my own self-worth wasn't tied to how much I gave others. That was a hard truth to accept, but it set me free. Back with Sarah, we slowly started creating new memories not centered around crisis or demands, but around small moments of joy. A walk in the park, a shared meal, a genuine conversation. One evening, she surprised me with a simple gift, a photo album of childhood pictures she'd found. Remember when we used to dream about traveling the world? She said, eyes shining. I smiled, feeling something I hadn't in years: hope. Our family was far from perfect, and the scars would never fully disappear. But for the first time, I believed healing was possible, not because we had all the answers, but because we were willing to try. And that, I realized, was the real meaning of family. As time passed, Sarah and I both faced setbacks, old patterns, and mistakes that threatened to pull us back into chaos. But something had changed. We no longer faced those challenges alone or in silence. One evening, after a particularly hard week, Sarah called me late at night, her voice trembling. "Danny, I messed up again. I relapsed. I felt the familiar surge of frustration and worry, but instead of anger, I chose compassion. Thank you for telling me," I said gently. "I'm here for you." "What do you need right now?" She took a deep breath. "I need to get back to the group. I need help." We talked for a long time that night about the pain, the shame, and the hope. And for the first time, I realized how much strength there is in vulnerability. That night marked a turning point. Sarah recommitted to her recovery, and I recommitted to supporting her, not by rescuing, but by walking beside her. I also learned the power of community. Together, we started attending family support meetings where others shared their stories of struggle and redemption. It was humbling and healing to see how many people faced similar battles. Slowly, the walls between us crumbled. We began to celebrate small victories: a week of sobriety, a job interview, a day without arguments. Those wins felt monumental. One afternoon, Sarah surprised me with a letter. It was simple but profound. "Danny, thank you for not giving up on me, for seeing me beyond my mistakes, for teaching me that family is not just about blood, but about love and grace." I held that letter close, knowing that the journey ahead was still long and uncertain, but also knowing we had come so far. Through the pain and the struggle, I discovered something deeper than forgiveness. Reconciliation. I found hope. Hope that broken things can be made whole, that love can heal wounds even when words fail. And most importantly, I found faith not just in God's promises, but in the power of obedience to those promises, even when it's hard. Because faith is not just belief. Faith is action. Faith is obedience. Looking back on this journey, I realized that faith was the cornerstone of everything, not a blind belief in things unseen, but a deliberate daily choice to obey God's instruction to love, forgive, and persevere. Faith was the courage to keep reaching out Sarah when she pushed me away. Faith was the humility to admit I didn't have all the answers, but trusted God did. Faith was the patience to walk alongside her in the messy, imperfect process of healing. If I had relied only on feelings or circumstances, I might have given up long ago. But obedience, acting on God's word, regardless of my doubts or fears, kept me grounded. This story is not just about my family. It's about all of us who face trials that test our faith. It's about how true faith demands more than belief. It requires action. It calls us to step into uncomfortable, to forgive the unforgivable, and to love when love feels impossible. In every challenge, God invites us to trust Him not just with our words, but with our lives. So if you find yourself struggling, remember this: faith is not passive. Faith is obedience. Obey God's instruction. Love, forgive, and keep going, because that obedience is where transformation begins in our hearts, in our families, and in our lives. And in that obedience, we find the true power of faith.